Hi everyone, this is Ashley with Marshflower Studio. In this video, I am going to show you guys how I make a little possum. Cute little guy. This is a pretty simple little possum to make. I have made a slight adjustment because once I finished this guy, I realized that I didn't want to make ears separately. So I'm going to be doing the ears in this first row of gray once we change colors. So he will have some little ears, and then the rest of him is fairly simple. And then we just kind of embroider on the feet at the end, if the tiny tornadoes allow. And the tail is done as a separate piece and then sewed to his little back end here. But we've got our worsted weight pink, our worsted weight soft white, and our kind of heather gray. So any variation of the colors you want to do is completely fine. If you want to have, a possum that has a green face and a purple body, do you. All right, so we're going to start with a magic circle, and in our magic circle we're going to have 4 single crochets, and I just did 4 because I wanted his little nose to be fairly small and pointed. All right. In our next row, we're going to start with an increase and then single crochet the rest of the way around. So there's 1 and 2, and then we'll do 3, 4, and 5. We'll make sure that this is turning in the right direction. So we have the right side facing out. For our next row, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to do an increase first, and then we'll have 4 single crochets. So there's my increase. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 6 stitches total for our third row. In our next row, we are going to have an increase and a single crochet, and we're going to repeat that all the way around so that we end up with 9 stitches at the end of this row. So there's 1 and 2, and then 3. We'll have 4 and 5, and then 6, 7 and 8, and then 9. Okay. For our next row, we're going to do another increase row. So we'll have an increase and 2 single crochets. So it'll take us out to 12 stitches total. So there's 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12. We must have some squirrels running around our backyard because my dogs are barking like crazy. If it's not the tiny tornadoes, it's the dogs, right? All right, in our next row, we're going to have 3 single crochets and an increase. And this will take us out to 15 stitches total. And that's as far as we're going to increase for this little possum. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 together. And then 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 together. 11, 12, 13, and 14, 15 together. All right. This is where we are going to do a color change to the body. So you've got his little white face here. We're going to switch over and do the color for his body. And however you do color changes is completely fine. I'm going to show you how I do them. You don't have to do it the same way. This little guy will turn out just fine if you do your color change different than I do, okay? So I'm going to do a slip stitch with my white, and then in the next stitch I'm going to put my hook through, and I'm going to grab my gray to pull through into a slip stitch, and then I'm going to cut my working white yarn. We're done with that. I'm going to tie a little knot here in these two, just because I feel like it makes it a little bit more secure. You can hold those tails out of the way. My yarn's trying to get all wrapped up in itself over here. All right. So in this row, we are going to make the ears, and then we're going to do several rows of just single crochet. All right. So let's see. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so 5 single crochets, and then in the front loop of number 6, we're going to do a half double and a chain, and then another half double, and then we'll go and do 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do another ear. So front loop only, half double, chain 1, half double, and then we'll finish our round. 1, oops, oh, I got the 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I know it doesn't look like a lot right now, but once we put the single crochets in the back loop back here behind the ear, and our single crochet rows will pull this middle part down, they will look a little bit more like little tiny ears sticking out of our possum. Okay. So we have 5 more rows of just single crochet. In this row, once you get to that ear, let's see, that's the start of my ear. Make sure you jump into that back loop behind the ear and then back to the front. Oh, well, too far. And that you still have 3 single crochets in between the ears. And then back loop only again behind that ear, and then back to the front. All right. So they will stand up a little bit more on their own once you've got that row behind them in place. We don't want gigantic ears for these little guys because they don't really have gigantic ears. So that was my second row of gray. So now we just single crochet until we have 5 rows of gray total. I know we have possums here in coastal Georgia, but we definitely see more armadillos running around than we see possums. Fun fact about possums, they like to eat ticks. So if you're a person that's ever out in the woods or the tall grass and you hate getting ticks on you, keep in mind that possums eat ticks and are trying to help you out with that problem. They may not be the most adorable creatures on the planet, but they are helpful. I have to remind my oldest that all of Mother Nature's creatures and critters are here for a purpose. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 1 more row of the gray. And then we will close in his behind and make him a tail. I will add my safety eyes at the end of this row. You can put them in sooner. For me, they just kind of get in the way. So I kind of wait until the last second, just put them in. All right, well, once you have your ears in place, you can go ahead and stick your eyes in. So just decide kind of where you think the eyes would look the most appropriate. I've seen some people put the eyes more on the side. Sorry, you guys, my allergies are pretty epic. So you can do eyes into the sides. So it's more like this. Or you can have them a little closer together. I think this one needs to move up a stitch. So you have a little bit more of a cute possum versus, you know, perhaps a little bit more realistic possum. So I'm going to turn a little possum head inside out to make this a little bit easier on myself. And you can do button eyes after he's all sewed up. You can do embroidered eyes if you prefer, depending on the safety eyes that you have. Ugh, this one doesn't want to go on. There we go. Some of the backs, depending on the brand, I guess, are made a little differently. And some of them don't stay on, whether you put the backing on, you know, this way or the other way. So for those, if you're going to use them, especially in something like this, I would take a lighter and kind of melt the very ends of these and then kind of smush it flat so that it is a much wider area that these backs would have to go over to actually come off, just to make them a little bit more safe. I have had a couple of the other kind of backs, you know, everything's together. I go to do a little thread, kind of sew my eyes indented, and the backs will just pop off inside. And then, yeah, I'm kind of stuck. I've got to figure out a way to get in there and fix it. So I try not to use those eyes if I can get away with it. But sometimes that's what we've got. All right, so face is done, body is done. For our kind of possum buns here, tuck these little cut off tails down inside there. I will use my starting tail from my white to kind of help tie a knot in the end to keep this guy nice and securely together. So for our next row, we're going to have 3 single crochets and a decrease. So 1, 2, and 3. And then our decrease is 4. We'll have 5, 6, 7, and our decrease is 8. And then 9, 10, 11, and our decrease is 12. Okay, so when we get to this point, we're going to stuff our little possum. And just keep in mind, you want to stuff them enough to keep their shape, but not so much that you are going to see stuffing through your stitches. Okay. So our very last row here is just going to be 6 decreases to close up his back end. 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're like me, if I do another decrease, it's just going to make the back of his butt kind of poof out a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a slip stitch after 5. And then we'll cut this off. We will sew his little bum hole here. So I go from the outside towards the inside under the front loop only of these last stitches that we just made. And we'll pull that nice and tight. We'll tie a little square knot between these two. And then we'll take and run these tails back up through the possum. We'll go right in through that center of the magic circle. So we have a nice clean finish on the back of our possum. We'll cut these little tails off. All right, so for our nose, feet, and tail, we're going to take some of our pink and you want to leave a little bit of a tail, kind of as your starting tail. We're going to make a slip knot. I have a chain 9 for my tail. If you wanted to have a longer tail, do a few extra chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So then from the second chain in the hook, I'm just going to slip stitch my way back across this chain. All right, and then we're using the tail of this to embroider the feet and the nose. So you want to pull out a good little bit just so that you don't run out. And we're going to pull this through. We'll do our little chain 1 fasten off here. I think I forgot to mention it, but I was using a 4mm hook just to make sure this guy was nice and compact. So I'm just going to choose kind of one of the stitches back here on his butt to attach my tail. So just like that. And we'll do a couple little stitches through. Oh goodness. Tiny tornadoes running amok. All right. All Okay, so our little tail is secure. I'll probably put one more stitch through that little tail before I actually finish tying everything off. But I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to go all the way down to the nose first. So I'm going to come out that magic circle hole. I'm just going to kind of create a little triangle down here on the tip of his nose. I'm just coming out that magic circle and then kind of bouncing back and forth between one side and the other of this single crochet stitch that's right in the middle of his little nose here. All right, so that's got his nose covered. So I'm going to take my hook, kind of find where I want my first leg to go. And I just give them kind of 3 little stitches and try to space them out just a little bit so it looks like they have some little toes. Oop, those ones got a little tight down there. So I'll go through that stitch. Whoops. I'll come over and go through the middle of this one. Whoop. And then we'll go over through the side of that one. So you kind of get your 3 little toes here. So then I'll come over. Do these toes right here. And we'll just do the same thing. Through one side, through the middle, and through the other side. And then we'll move to the back feet. Again, we'll just go through the right side, through the middle, and through the left side. And then we'll go under and do his last little foot here. And very clearly I have way too much extra pink, but as I said, I prefer to have too much and then have some to kind of trim off versus not having enough. Okay, so I'll come back out his back end here. And somewhere along the line, oh, there we go. That got tucked in. So make a couple more little quick stitches through his tail here. So I've seen my child play with some of these things that I make, and things like tails really need to make sure that they're attached well. And then we will tie a square knot or just fasten off and weave in your ends. I'm actually going to trim this, so I'm not trying to sew all of my extra pink through this little possum. I'm actually going to use one of my larger yarn needles because they're much easier to thread. Boop. So there is our cute little possum. Possum friends. I may have to sew some ears onto this one, but cute little possum, pretty easy to make, very easy to make. And it's just one of those little creatures that they're not the most attractive, we'll say, but you can't help but just smile when you see one because they're also kind of cute in their own little way. But if you like the little possum, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you have not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button so you can see other videos that I put out. Make sure you check out all of the other videos that have already been posted. There are some really cute things in there to make, a lot of things that are really easy, don't take a lot of time, very kind of beginner friendly. If you know the different stitches, you know how to single crochet, you can do most all of them. Feel free to put any requests in the comments and I'll work on those. Also in the description there is a link to the web page where I do sell some of my little creatures. I haven't updated it in a little while because I'm waiting on my new computer to show up before I start trying to do that. And I'm also working on typing up a lot of my patterns so that you guys can have access to the written versions as well as the video to follow along. And thank you guys for, being hookers and wanting to learn some new cute little crochet patterns. So I'll see you guys in the next video.